Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'm Sally Lone. Welcome to the FSC BT Political Series Breakfast, our sixth and final for the year. And let me start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of this land, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I would like to pay my respects to the elders past and present and extend that respect to other Indigenous people here today. A very special welcome to our guest speaker this morning, the Prime Minister, the Honourable Malcolm Turnbull. I would like to welcome Brad Cooper, CEO of BT Financial Group and Deputy Chairman of the FSC. Brad will introduce the Prime Minister shortly. Welcome to FSC Chairman Jeff Lloyd, Directors Brett Clark, Alexis George and Paul Carter. Welcome to all our member CEOs and all of our member companies here today, and those of you who are not yet members. I plan to find you. Without your continued support, we wouldn't be able to carry out the important policy work that we undertake every single day on behalf of financial services. Thank you to BT Financial Group for your support of this excellent political series. It's been a very challenging year in politics, as I'm sure most of us would attest, and quite a challenging year for financial services. And goodness knows there's no politics in financial services. Our members are a big spread across financial services, which is the nation's biggest sector by value to GDP, just pipped occasionally by mining. It's about neck and neck at the moment. Our members span superannuation, life insurance, investment and funds management, trustee companies and advice. We all advocate for a financial services industry that delivers the very best outcomes and results for all Australians. We live in a world where the consumer is now all-powerful. We examine our policies and our enforceable standards not only through the lens of our members' requirements, but we also look at them through the eyes of the consumer, whether they're for strong governance and competition in superannuation, for consumer protections in life insurance, for sound native title investments, quality mental health training, wealth building, to name just a few. We ask, do our policies and do our standards deliver better outcomes for people? People must be able to trust our industry. Through a myriad businesses in financial services, we manage people's money. We invest and grow their savings. We protect their lives and livelihoods. We dispense quality advice, distribute philanthropic funds and ensure people have comfortable retirements. It's a huge responsibility. The FSC and our member companies have been instrumental in achieving many positive outcomes that are changing our sector for the better. We launched the Life Insurance Code of Practice less than 18 months after the independent Trowbridge review into life insurance, which we initiated. The Code is the insurance industry's commitment to mandatory customer service standards designed to protect every consumer who has a life insurance policy. And currently, we're working with 4 other superannuation industry organisations to ensure these commitments are delivered in group superannuation. We intend to develop and improve group insurance in super for all Australians. The FSC's advocacy this year has again been a very big spread. We've successfully advocated for higher standards, better education, ethics and a standards board for financial advisors. In superannuation, we did urge changes to some of the budget tax treatment of super, including the removal of the lifetime non-concessional contribution cap. Our advocacy of lower regulatory burdens has also resulted in reduced reporting and disclosure requirements in some superannuation reporting. Our policy work in funds management saw legislation passed this year which significantly simplifies the tax regime for these vehicles. And we commend the government for its start to fix the complex withholding tax regime. This is something that started. It's been a big barrier. Along with developing the corporate collective investment vehicles, this will help the Asia Region Funds Passport achieve success when it starts this time next year. These reforms will be growth accretive for the economy. Deloitte Access Economics did the numbers for us. If we can mimic Hong Kong and grow exports of Australian funds management expertise and products to their level, we will generate some 10,000 jobs here. The flow of funds coming into Australia to be managed by our fund managers may not be as easy to see as the merchant ships full of wheat and wool, coal and iron ore, but they are just as important, and they will be even more valuable if we can just work on some of those barriers that are being removed as we speak. In an economy looking for every opportunity, financial services exports does offer big potential. Looking ahead to 2017, we urge the Parliament, that's the government, the opposition and the Senate crossbench, to deliver a superannuation system that will be fit for purpose for the next generation. 4 reviews in the past 6 years have made it clear superannuation must be reformed to reflect modern Australia. Super 2.0 needs to be different to today's system. It must offer choice for all Australians. Every Australian must be able to choose their super fund. That's not the case at the moment. It must operate in a competitive, open and flexible market. That's not the case today. It must deliver a comfortable retirement for all and reduce the numbers of people on the old age pension. It must try to close the gender gap, and it must be fiscally sustainable over the long term. Australians want certainty and confidence in superannuation. It's a very sound policy. And finally, no surprise to anyone in this room, our industry is under more scrutiny than ever before. Since 2009, there have been 14 reviews into the financial services sector, and currently there are around 4 underway as we speak. So far, regulation has cost business in financial services in the last decade $3 billion. During that period, we've had 17 different ministers in the relevant portfolio. If there's one message we have for our elected representatives, all of them, is this: please pause the cycle of review and re-review into our industry. Allow the recommendations, laws and regulations already delivered to work, to do their job. They are doing that. We do want financial services to truly deliver us the next mining boom with jobs, exports and competitive growth. Prime Minister, we're an optimistic bunch in this room. We like doing business. We like employing people, not always just in compliance. We like growing wealth for all of our customers. We look forward to working constructively with your government in the coming months and years. And I do now want to introduce Brad Cooper. Brad is the CEO of BT Financial Group. He is a co-deputy chair of the Financial Services Council. He's passionate about consumer service, customer service. He's determined to help close the gender gap for women. He's a business leader who truly understands the critical need for engaging with our political leaders, which is why BT Financial Group is such a great supporter of this political series event. Please welcome Brad, who will introduce the Prime Minister. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Sally, and welcome everybody. Thank you very much for joining us here this morning. BT is delighted to be hosting what is now the last of the political series for 2016, and shortly I'm very pleased to introduce the Prime Minister to you. The last of 2016, hasn't this year just flown by? And what a crazy year it's been. Pokemon Go, everybody here? Pokemon Go in 2016? Hordes of people all around the world, adults and children, chasing virtual icons anywhere their mobile phone would send them. Absolutely crazy. Recently, obviously, we've had Brexit and we've had Trump, and the result of those votes and the fallout from it has just absolutely dominated the media, and with the latter, particularly on Twitter. And it's dominated so much you could almost forget in 2016 was the year of the Brazilian Olympics. It was a year also we've lost Muhammad Ali, David Bowie, Prince. So an incredible year. Closer to home, obviously, we had our 8-week election campaign, culminating in the election of the 45th Parliament. A majority for our government, obviously, and a diverse Senate that's going to provide us some very interesting times ahead. But this government has got on with business. In the last few months, it's got on with the superannuation budget measures. It's got on with the Building and Constructions Bill. And we look forward to strong leadership from this government as Australians look into the future and the challenges that we face. In particular, a surprise lower growth recently, the transition of the economy from a resources-led one to a services-led one, and obviously the ongoing scrutiny into our AAA credit rating. Similarly, as an industry, we too are facing into necessary change as we look to an ongoing partnership with the government to ensure that we deliver solid policy outcomes for all Australians. Together, and Sally's outlined some of these, we've already got a strong foundation. On life insurance, we came together with a package of initiatives after the Trowbridge review to address community concerns around lapse rates, upfront commissions and so forth. On advice, BT, along with other leaders within our industry, led the way towards professionalisation of financial advice, and we welcome the professional standards body to drive an increase in education, ethics and the professionalisation of our industry. And finally, on superannuation, we now have a superannuation tax regime which we hope will lead to stability of the tax system for the next decade and beyond. And we trust that next year we will achieve a legislated purpose of superannuation which we think is critically important to underpin the stability of the retirement system. Now, although we've made great progress, there's always more to do, particularly as Australians more and more rely on financial services to provide a dignified life in retirement and a better quality of life overall. And that's why BT is very proud to be hosting this BT FSC political series. We think it's critically important that the industry has open dialogue with Australia's political leaders. And so it gives me great pleasure today to have the Prime Minister here with us to discuss the government's 2017 priorities. Now, Malcolm Turnbull is very well versed on the complexity of our industry and the important role that it plays in all Australians' lives. And so I would now like to welcome the Prime Minister, the Honourable Malcolm Turnbull. Thank you.
Well, Brad, thank you very much for that very warm welcome. And thank you, Sally Lone, for your remarks earlier, and to all the members of the Financial Services Council and the BT Financial Group, distinguished guests, thank you very much for inviting me here this morning. You in this room represent the largest industry in the Australian economy. The financial sector alone accounts for around 10% of the economy, employs more than 450,000 people, manages a total of $2.7 trillion. Perhaps more importantly, your sector touches the lives of Australian families at every stage, whether they're managing their household budget or a business, buying a home or a car, purchasing insurance, or saving for retirement. It's hard to overstate how important a strong, dependable, trusted financial sector is for our country. My government is keenly aware of what you contribute and what you stand to gain at this time of rapid change. 2 years on from the financial system inquiry, a range of reforms underway will make sure that this sector is as robust, responsive as it can be. These reforms are a critical part of our plan for a resilient and prosperous 21st century Australia. Now, it's worth reflecting on some recent economic data and its implications for policy. The National Accounts outcome last week was a sharp reminder that we cannot afford to take growth for granted. GDP fell by 0.5% in the September quarter to be 1.8% higher across the year. Although this annual growth rate is faster than 6 of the G7 economies, the figures should reinforce to all of us the importance of serious structural and budgetary reform if we are to protect and advance the living standards of all Australians. Our national economic pie can only grow if we have inputs or if we become better at using our existing inputs due to innovation, improvements in knowledge, or greater competition. Remember, innovation is the key to growth in productivity. Growth in productivity is the key to securing our prosperity. Now, that is why our National Economic Plan focuses on labour market reform, policies to boost investment and encourage innovation, trade deals that have opened up the markets of the world to our exporters and opened up our markets to the world, and of course continuing microeconomic reform. We have restored the rule of law in the construction industry by re-establishing the Australian Building and Construction Commission. By establishing the Registered Organisations Commission, we have ensured that registered organisations, unions and employer organisations will have the same levels of accountability and transparency as company directors do to their shareholders. Straightforward reforms, you would think, but bitterly opposed during the 8-week campaign, which I promise there will never be another 8-week campaign under a government I lead, so don't have to worry about that. Although I must say, Brad, you did mention what an interesting year it has been. An 8-week campaign seems positively succinct compared to the epic the Americans inflict on themselves. So, nonetheless, we've been able to secure the passage of those laws and, of course, the superannuation changes set out in the budget. We've been able to secure those changes through the Senate, through the 45th Parliament, which many people said we would not be able to work with. And so we have been able to do that in the relatively few weeks between the election and the end of the year, end of the calendar year. Now, we are seeking to pass our legislation to deliver our enterprise tax plan, which will deliver tax cuts this year to 870,000 incorporated small businesses with turnovers below $10 million, and which will eventually reduce the company tax rate to 25% for all companies. We've established our National Innovation and Science Agenda, bringing more great Australian ideas to market, providing tax incentives to invest in startups, and helping prepare our children for the jobs of the future by boosting participation in science, technology, engineering and maths. We're boosting our exports with the big export trade deals with China, Japan, Korea, indeed, and a relatively new deal just announced this year with Singapore, all of which give our businesses, our farmers, service sector a competitive edge and opening doors into the expanding markets for a much wider range of industries than ever before. Those export trade deals are critically important to securing our future. And you've seen political opposition to them from time to time, particularly from the Labor Party and the unions. Believe me, those who oppose those export trade deals are undermining or threatening to undermine the future of our nation, the security of the prosperity of our children. Microeconomic reform is vitally important, and we're engaging in its next round following the recommendations of the Harper Review. The Treasurer has initiated a 5-yearly inquiry by the Productivity Commission into our productivity performance. And while we talk about productivity a lot, and we should, we want the Productivity Commission to come to us with a wide range of new practical ideas to increase our growth in national income. Now, under the Labor Party of the past, these objectives were reasonably bipartisan. But today, the modern Labor Party, the Bill Shorten Labor Party, opposes labour market reform. They want to increase taxes. They opposed the China-Australia Free Trade Agreement in particular, quite bitterly, you may recall, in some very bitter, vicious advertising. And they have no serious plans for boosting innovation or pursuing further microeconomic reform. Labor's economic agenda in 2016 consists of higher spending, higher taxes, higher deficits and higher debt. That is a blueprint for economic stagnation. And unfortunately, the message in last week's national accounts figures appears to have been completely lost on the Labor Party. Even after last week, they still want to let the CFMEU reign supreme on the building sites of Australia. They still want to deny Australian businesses a tax cut that will give them the incentive to invest, to grow and employ Australians. And last Friday we saw that Labor state premiers refused to sign up to an agreement that set out basic principles and a framework for implementing the path-breaking microeconomic reforms recommended by Professor Harper in his competition policy review. So the modern Labor Party is not the party of Hawke and Keating. Hawke deregistered the Builders Labourers Federation. Shorten defends the CFMEU. Paul Keating cut business taxes. Shorten wants to increase them. Their agenda is populist and opportunistic, and every element of it deters investment, discourages trade and undermines employment. In contrast, my government is undertaking a wide range of necessary reforms. Everything we are doing, every element of our policy is designed to promote investment and economic growth, because we know that if you encourage investment, if you encourage business formation, if you encourage innovation, you will drive more employment, you'll have more jobs and better jobs. We face big structural changes in the global economy. We face big headwinds in the global economy. Complacency, trying to turn the clock backwards, trying to seize every populist zephyr of wind to exploit for your own political opportunistic purposes. That, my friends, is the road to ruin. We have to recognise that driving productivity, being more competitive in every sector is the only sure way to secure our future, and that is my commitment. Now, in the financial services sector, as Sally noted, our superannuation tax changes have been passed by the Parliament. They are designed to ensure the sustainability, the flexibility and integrity of our superannuation system. And when you think of the scale of the changes and the inevitable complexity of them, because superannuation, as you all know, is a very complex business, I think it is a great credit to the ministers, Scott Morrison and Kelly O'Dwyer, that the bill that was finally passed was passed with relatively few amendments. We're able to secure it through the Parliament with very few amendments. The vast majority, in fact, only of the major measures, only one was reconfigured to secure its support through the Parliament, and that shows how well my ministers, my economic ministers, undertook the advocacy in what is inevitably a very complex area. Now, this savings system must also be efficient and competitive, and so, as you know, we've tasked the Productivity Commission with the first comprehensive review of the entire system's efficiency and competitiveness. They've just released stage 1 of the review, developing the criteria for its assessment. Stage 2, due next year, will consider alternative models for fund allocation. And stage 3, following the full implementation of the MySuper reforms in July 2017, will complete the process. We'll enshrine in legislation for the first time the objective of the superannuation system to provide income in retirement that substitutes or supplements the age pension. That is a clear, simple objective that will restore confidence in the system and guide decisions about super for generations to come. It's also clear that governance standards must apply consistently to all sectors of the superannuation industry, whether retail, corporate or industry funds. And that is why in 2017 my government will reintroduce legislation to address existing inconsistencies, raise the standards of governance and put the interests of members ahead of any self-interest in the superannuation sector. We're also pursuing reform in the area of financial advice. Just last month, the Minister for Revenue, Kelly O'Dwyer, introduced legislation into the Parliament to mandate professional standards for financial advisors. These new requirements replace a system that has allowed some financial advisors with only 4 days of training to provide advice to retail consumers. It will mean much more stringent training and supervision so that consumers can have confidence in the industry and confidence that the advisors they speak with are ethical and qualified and are putting their interests first. The new standards will come into effect at the beginning of 2019, so all new advisors entering the industry from then will need a degree. Existing advisors will have until 2024 to complete the requirements. We're also working to make sure remuneration structures don't adversely affect the quality of advice consumers receive. On regulation, our $127 million package will better equip ASIC, I see Greg approves there, thumbs up, to conduct better surveillance and combat misconduct in the industry. We'll consult on strengthening ASIC's enforcement tools for the financial services and credit licensing regime, and will make issuers and distributors of financial products more accountable. Our new requirement that bank CEOs appear at least annually before the House of Representatives Standing Committee on Economics will improve the transparency and accountability of the banking sector and bring about cultural change within the banks. It will be, over time, a very important confidence-building exercise and a very important exercise in increased accountability. Finally, we've appointed Professor Ian Ramsey, as you know, to chair a review of the role, powers and governance of all of the financial system's external dispute resolution and complaint schemes, including the Financial Ombudsman Service, the Superannuation Complaints Tribunal and the Credit and Investments Ombudsman. The current dispute resolution system is not working as well as it should be. Our ultimate goal of future reform in this area is to ensure that all of the relevant bodies are working effectively and that they produce the right outcomes for consumers and small businesses. Many of these reforms have a focus on our domestic systems and institutions and the way they handle the savings of Australian families and businesses. Now, looking outward, there's enormous potential, as Sally noted, for our financial sector to be among our greatest exporters and for our major cities to be financial hubs in the Asia-Pacific, the world's fastest growing region. We have one of the largest and most sophisticated managed funds industries in the world, but exports from this industry are among our lowest. Right now, less than 4% of the funds under management in Australia are managed on behalf of foreign investors. And we're working to make sure our industry can take advantage of the vast opportunity unfolding in our neighbourhood. In the May budget, we announced a tax and regulatory framework for two new types of collective investment vehicles, a corporate SIV and a limited partnership SIV. These vehicles are common overseas, so Australian fund managers will be able to offer products that foreign investors are already familiar with, making it easier for our funds managers to export more of their services. And we are, as Sally noted, carefully considering the sustainability and competitiveness of the withholding tax regime. Now, introducing these vehicles complements our work on the Asia Region Funds Passport. The passport means that Australia's industry will be able to access a single market with high standards of investor protection right across the Asia region. Thailand has joined Australia, Japan, Korea and New Zealand in signing on, which means the combined population of the member countries is now well over 250 million people. We have until the end of next year to get our domestic arrangements in place to use the passport, and once any two of the 5 member countries are ready, the passport will activate and we will be in business. There are vast opportunities here for our well-managed, well-resourced, high-performing sector to grow and branch out into new regions. Another aspect of this growth will be the swelling tide of technological change, often referred to as Fintech. This is a disruptive force in the industry, one that is already changing the way you do business, delivering efficiencies for markets and better interface for consumers. Concepts like peer-to-peer lending, crowdfunding, mobile payments, digital currencies, robo-advisors, all help to stimulate competition and increase choice. Now, my government wants all of this kind of innovation to be encouraged, to flourish, and for the effective elements of it, for the successful ones, to go on to greater heights. Fintech is a big opportunity in Australia, and I know many of you are aware of the investments, the private equity and venture capital that is going into Fintech here in Australia, in particular here in Sydney, at the Fintech hub here. We have a very strong, very well-regulated financial services sector. Innovation is going to be a very big part of it. and we have to work with you to make sure that regulation enables innovation rather than constraining it. So that's why we're taking a technology-neutral approach, and so where we can, we'll change the law to make sure nothing impedes technologies that offer genuine improvements. Our introduction of legislation to make crowdsourced equity funding easier to access is just one example. Now, over the past few months, I've travelled to summits and meetings around the world, and amid the discussion of important issues like growth, trade, security, what struck me is, at all of those meetings, is what a bright spot Australia is on the globe, how much we have going for us. We have every reason to be very positive, very optimistic, never complacent, but determined to succeed better than we ever have before. The opportunities around us are breathtaking in their scale and possibility. And there is no doubt, however, that holding on to the gains of the past while seizing the promises of the future requires effort and resolve. Complacency, looking backwards, is not an option, not in the 21st century. We are living at a time, and this is the tenor of the time, we are living at a time when the pace and the scale of change is greater than at any previous moment in human history. That is the tenor of our time. The theme of our time is extraordinarily rapid change, driven in large part by technology. But it is not just the pace of the change, it is the scale of it. And we are in the fastest growing, most exciting region of the world. And you are in one of the most exciting industries in the world, and so vital for our future, for the future of our children and grandchildren. So we know that if we stay the course, if we remain committed to the economic reform that in the past has delivered us prosperity, that in the past has secured our prosperity, if we continue focusing on the path of economic reform, open markets, trade, constantly improving through innovation our productivity and our competitiveness, I know, and I believe you know, that our future can be brighter than ever. You are a great and innovative industry. You are trusted by millions of Australians with their future. We will support you. We will work with you. We'll work with your leaders. We'll work with your regulators to ensure that Australians' economic futures are secure, their savings are secure, their confidence to invest and employ is greater than ever. There is a great future for us all, but we must stay the course. Populism, opportunism, taking approaches that deny the realities of growth, that want to shut the door to trade, that want to load up business with higher taxes, that is the road to ruin. The path to prosperity is built on freedom, it's built on economic reform, it's built on open markets, it's built on encouraging investment and the employment that comes from it. That's our commitment to you as your government, and I wish you all a very happy Christmas and some rest from your labours, well deserved no doubt, over the holiday. Thank you.
I promise you breakfast will be here in any second, but I do want to take a moment now to thank the Prime Minister so much for those very optimistic words. As I said, we're an optimistic bunch. In business, we like to grow, we like to employ people, we like to trade, we like open, competitive financial markets, and we heard that reflected today. Prime Minister, thank you very, very much. I also personally really enjoyed hearing the word innovation again. Fantastic, thank you. Competition, open trade, efficiency, competitiveness, innovation and technology. That really does sum up financial services. And in Sydney here, this is a city that's leading the sector, which is the biggest sector in New South Wales and the biggest sector in Australia. So thank you, Prime Minister, for your very optimistic words. And we do wish you well. We are obviously, we're an industry that requires scrutiny, we do require regulation, but we also require barriers to be removed that are impeding our business and our ability to be more efficient and more productive and hire more people. So we look forward to working very constructively with your government and with the Parliament to make sure that we do that. 2017 is going to be a very busy year for all of us. I wish you a happy Christmas. I hope you have a great break. Please enjoy your breakfast now and stay for as long as you can. Thank you, Prime Minister. And I'd very much like to thank Brad Cooper and BT Financial Group for your wonderful support of this political series. This is a terrific way to end the year. Thank you.